Welcome back to the She Leads the Way podcast. I'm your host, Nikki Bedford, and on today's episode, we have Tamara Abdel Jaber. She is the partner of Amam Ventures, which is a gender lens investment fund. She's also a huge advocate for women. She is the co-founder of Women in Business Arabia. They have more than 45,000 members. She's also one of the 500 most influential women within the Middle East. What an absolute honor. Thank you so much for joining me, Tamara.
Thank you, Nikki. I'm so happy to be here today.
So let's just kick it off. I'd love to know a little bit more about your background. Where have you come from and, where are you at now?
Sure. It's a long story. I'm Jordanian, based in Amman, and I've always wanted to change the world.
Yes.
And that's why ever since I was a kid in school, I wanted to start my own business because that's how I figured changing the world would happen. We've been reading about how Steve Jobs said things, how all these change makers changed the lives of people around them. And I wanted to be one of those. Of course, I grew up and matured and realized that I needed to have a bit more focus. But after leaving school, I come from a family of professionals and civil servants. So my parents were pushing me to do medicine, engineering, maybe computers, etc. But then I figured since I wanted to start my own business, I needed to do something that would give me the right platform or the right background to help me run a business. And decided to do accounting and finance.
Yes.
I did that in Jordan. I aced it. But then when I graduated, I figured that I needed more practical experience before I could start my own business. So I decided to work for 5 years. I worked as a CFO for a group of IT companies.
Fantastic.
5 years, 2 weeks later, my first company was registered.
Oh,
It was a management consulting firm.
congratulations.
Thank you. That focused on strategy and business transformation. I worked across the region, all the interesting countries, Saudi, of course, UAE. I did a lot of work here, but also Libya, Sudan, Egypt, Lebanon. And I can tell you that was challenging.
Yes.
But it was fun.
Why was it challenging?
It was challenging because I was a young female founder of a business. Everyone was curious to meet me. I couldn't travel to Saudi because I was too young to get a visa as a single woman. Traveling all the time was really difficult.
Yeah.
Going to, it's not comfortable arriving in Sudan at 2 a.m. in the morning, things like that. So, but I can tell you, it was very rewarding because I was learning so much every single day, dealing with different clients, understanding the different business cultures. When we think of the region, we always think of it as this big geography where everyone look the same. We know that they speak the same language, they share the same religion in a lot of cases, the same history as well, but it's so different doing business in each one of the countries.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that was a big learning experience for me. But then I realized that working with large corporates is not something that's fulfilling for me. I wanted to do something that's more impactful. So I started tailoring the consulting services that I was offering to focus more on SMEs and startups.
Okay.
Because I figured these are the people who are truly struggling, who need someone to give them a helping hand and show them the way to create larger companies. So I started doing that. But then later on, through one of the programs that I took part in, I learned of the importance that I need to pay it forward to women in my country, in my part of the world. And just to have fun, my friend and I started hosting these dinners at our homes.
Yes.
Where we invited women business owners to pitch their businesses. We invited a few of our friends to just give ideas, serve as their mentors, as their advisors. And we started getting all this traction for this activity. A lot of women were reaching out and they're like, remember that session you did for so-and-so? Can you do one for me? My business really needs it. And we're like, this is actually a cool idea.
Yeah.
Let's bring together 50 of our friends from across the region, women who are willing to mentor other women.
Yes.
We put them in a closed Facebook group, which we called Women in Business Arabia. And those friends invited their friends, the friends invited their friends, and all of a sudden we have more than 45,000 women.
What?
30% of those are business owners. And we're like, whoa, we did not expect that. At one point, this group was recognized by Facebook as one of the most active networks in the MENA region.
Really?
They were reaching out.
Those women were eating it up, loving it.
Exactly. Because like women, we realized that
Yes.
women are missing that convening
Yes.
platform.
Yes.
And
connection.
Exactly. They needed that. And they saw that it was a very responsive, self-curated group where members were sharing their experiences, sharing their success stories, sharing their challenges,
Yeah.
and asking for support and advice. And we're getting that instantly.
Yeah, I love
you
that.
know? So it was amazing. And then we started dreaming some more.
Yeah.
So I considered myself to be very lucky having started a career, a business, and something that I'm passionate about. Creating institutions, growing stronger businesses was something that I truly enjoyed. But then I realized that that group like really gave us a finger on the pulse for women across the region. We truly understood the challenges they were going through. And we realized that access to finance was one of the biggest challenges. So the next dream started, creating a gender lens fund, when people in the region weren't like, what is gender lens investing, you know?
And that's Amam Ventures?
That's Amam Ventures. So Amam Ventures saw the light in January 2021. And it's been growing and going from success to success ever since.
That's amazing. So I'm going to stop you there and take a bit of a step back. You said that you essentially knew that you wanted to change the world, which I just love that, because it was obviously just such a big part of you. As soon as you were born, the universe was like, this is your job. You tied that into knowing that you wanted to build your own business. At what age were you like, I want to build my own business?
I must have been like 14, 15.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy. So you had a very mature outlook on life from a very young age.
I did. I was a nerd who read a lot, who spent a lot of time with grown-ups.
Yes.
And I was constantly listening to like everything that was going around me, politics, economic situation, things like that. So, and I always found that fascinating.
So do you think that that's what had an influence on you?
I would say that had a very big part.
And then from there, you were just trying to figure out how you could create your own business.
Exactly.
That's really incredible.
I think one thing that people or parents especially tend to not think too much about is what their kids hear in conversations that grown-ups around them are having. And then I remember, so like every weekend, so I had different weekends from my mom, who's a working mom, and she worked at something called the Royal Scientific Society, which was like sort of a research center that was started in the 70s in Amman, Jordan, way before anything like that was set up in the region. And I would spend every Sunday with her at her work, just watching what they were doing with computers. In the 80s, computers were like these huge machines that were, you know, like spaceships. And I was always fascinated by understanding the flow of businesses, understanding how businesses collaborated. They had a huge library, so I spent a lot of time there. And then I would visit my dad at his work, where he worked in vocational training and education. So again, I got another side, another industry that I understood really well. And that's why one of the things that I started recently was an initiative with a bunch of people where we're helping promote vocational education across the region.
Fantastic. That's incredible. So your parents were always very supportive of you creating. And
Absolutely.
you think that helped you? Because you did this at such a young age and you've just continued to, I mean, you were essentially born with an entrepreneurial mindset.
I was. I'd like to believe I was. I worked hard to get to the stage where I felt that I was ready to venture out on my own, but I always had very clear objectives. Of course, my parents, having been professionals and civil servants, kind of questioned my decision for a while because, you know, they're used they're used to the security of a job, a paycheck at the end of the month, and here I was deciding to let go of all that and starting on my own. I think it was scary for me, that's for sure, but it must have been scary for them as well. But again, I always knew that I had a safety net in them. That I can always fall back on them, get the support, whatever I decided to do. And I figured that I was setting myself to become a role model for women around me, and I wanted to be that.
Yeah, I love that. Well, you definitely are. I want to talk more about you within the women empowerment space. So can you tell me where the love for women has come from? Because you've done so much work in this space. I'd love to know what sort of sparked the journey for you.
It was an analysis that was going on in my head. So
tell me.
2009, I was selected to take part in an amazing program that Fortune magazine does called Global Women Leaders Mentoring Partnership.
Cool.
So the premise of the program is that they pair women leaders from developing countries with C-level executives from Fortune 500 companies in the US, which was for me an amazing opportunity. I got to be paired with two amazing mentors at Accenture, which is one of the global players in consulting. It was an opportunity that I would never have dreamed of. I got to spend 5 weeks at their offices in New York. And part of the program was interacting with the 40 women who were in the program with me. They were coming from 23 different countries. And I come from a family and a community where women always worked.
Yes.
And as a female, as a business owner and founder, I came across challenges, but they weren't they weren't unsurmountable, you know. And then I started listening to the stories of these women who were coming from different African countries, different Asian countries, where it's different cultures, it's different norms, different mindsets and stereotypes. And I realized that I'm truly blessed with the background that I was coming from, you know. I had it easy in comparison to those women. But then I started thinking about the situation for women in Jordan in particular, and realized that although all the women around me were working moms, looking at the percentage of women's economic participation in the country, it was going down.
Wow.
Okay. And then I started reading and trying to understand why that was happening. Of course, there's a lot of reasons. A lot of them are political, so I don't want to go there. But there was this cultural shift in the country, okay, where women felt that the challenges were too much for them. The mindsets of their and the stereotypes with the men were changing, and that was becoming more of an obstacle for women. Of course, there are always structural challenges like the lack of public transportation, childcare and elderly care are not available at reasonable prices. So these are obstacles that I can't do much about.
Yes.
But then I figured that at least for those that I can help, for those obstacles that I can help eliminate, I have a duty, I have a responsibility to actually help and do something about it. And that's why I took part in the Women Business Association in Jordan, started taking part in all these programs just to identify women that I can support, women that needed some of the experiences that I had. And then that evolved into Women in Business Arabia.
That's crazy. That's really incredible. I want to talk more about women in business because, you know, having a support network of women around you is so incredibly important, both, you know, in business, but also just generally in life.
Right.
Can you tell me, I know that we spoke briefly earlier and you were saying that it just sort of came about where you were having dinners and then it was next minute 45,000 of your closest friends were there. I know that there are a lot of people that want to be a part of these networks or even create them for their own. What advice would you give people that are looking to create a support network or find people that they can connect with?
So getting from 0 to 45,000 took no time. And for me, this was a proof that there's a huge need for such networks. So if anyone sees in themselves that they can be that convening force, they can bring together women, they have to do it. Again, it's a responsibility that they need to be doing this. And one of the things that I've also learned is that we shouldn't be competing together. I don't know if you know the saying by Madeleine Albright, there's a special place in hell for women who don't support other women.
Yeah, I have heard that.
It's for me, it's like it's a motto that I live by. And anyone who reaches out to us telling us that we need support, we need help in creating something that's very similar to what you're doing, but maybe supports a different geography, supports women in a specific industry, even does exactly or replicates what we're doing, we're happy to help because the demand is huge, the gap is huge. If we look at the performance of this part of the world in the World Economic Forum's Gender Gap Report, with the exception of UAE, Saudi is improving dramatically. The rest of the region, we still lag behind. So, we all need to be working hard in order to improve the situation for women, especially women business owners, in the region.
Yeah. So you're saying there is a big appetite for women wanting to
100%.
connect with other women.
100%.
Because I know that I know particularly in Dubai there is a huge sort of it's a networking hub massively, especially for entrepreneurs. But I don't think that you could have too many networks or associations where people can come together, because people also say there are a lot of groups, but also people are still feeling very lonely. So that sort of does speak to the fact that there is.
Yeah. And because you might find chemistry with a specific group, but not the other, etc.
Yeah.
So, like...
Not every group is for you.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's great. So how long has the group been around for now?
We started in 2017.
2017.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, that's unbelievable. Oh, so you were able to carry them through COVID.
And that was the beautiful thing about it. So when COVID hit, we had all these lockdowns, we went virtual. Everyone was like trying to figure out how to start offering support and services, capacity building, events, etc.
Yes.
Online. Okay?
Yes.
We were already designed.
Yeah, you're like, we're
to do
here.
that. We're like, exactly, we've been doing that. And I remember during COVID, for each webinar we had an average of 4,000 to 5,000 views.
Oh my goodness, that's incredible. So there is just a massive appetite.
Absolutely.
I want to ask you, I want to pivot a little bit now towards just business in general. A lot of the listeners on She Leads the Way have either just started a business or they're teetering on the edge. They're like, I really want to create something. They might be a little fearful about sort of jumping in. You have come from a place of, launching many different businesses. What advice would you give women that are in this space? Because it's daunting, right?
It is. It's not an easy journey. It's a very lonely journey for both men and women, but even more so for women.
Yes.
So I can tell you, before I come to the lessons learned or the lessons that I'd like to share, I have to mention something that we've recognized when we were screening all these businesses when designing the investment fund. I remember we screened more than 400 women-owned and women-led businesses. And those businesses were not the traditional tech startups that everyone is chasing.
Yes.
Okay. Women tended to cluster in education and entertainment, healthcare and well-being, food and beverage, creative and design, some in manufacturing and some in tech. But women are in different industries, in different fields. And that's why at the fund, we decided that we cannot just focus on tech. We need to be sector agnostic. But the lesson from that was the businesses tended to not be investment ready.
Okay.
A lot of them have never talked to investors before. A lot of them have barely talked to banks before. So they needed a lot of support, a lot of help in order for them to become ready to tap into investments.
Yes.
Financial literacy and financial confidence and well-being was a big gap that we saw. I can't begin to tell you the number of times that I heard women say, I'm afraid of numbers. I don't understand accounting. But you cannot run a business if you don't understand the basics. You need to know the tactics really well in order for you to be able to hire people. So that was a big gap. The other one was the confidence. And again, women tend to undermine themselves. Women tend to undermine their dreams.
Yes.
And that's one. And for those three gaps, we decided to launch a technical assistance and capacity building platform where we are supporting women through those programs that we've been doing in order to overcome those challenges and become readier investment opportunities for us, but for the general ecosystem. Now, in addition to the need for women to work on those three topics, there were a few things that I've learned throughout my journey and that continue to remain everyday guiding posts for me. One is being a constant learner.
Yeah.
Okay, there's always something new to learn out there. I started with a degree in accounting and finance, and the work that I was doing was in business and in management engineering. And I had to learn a lot. Starting a business, I needed to learn about human resources, marketing, sales. I needed to move from being the person who was the most in the back office to being in the front office, leading my business, talking to potential clients. So studying, listening to podcasts, watching videos, etc., was what got me to where I am today. Networking is another important factor because, again, women tend to shy away. Women have a lot of responsibilities and priorities, that they forget sometimes to take enough time for them to network, to reach out to others, build linkages. And it's become easier these days than it was 10 years ago. You need to have your tribe. You need to have your network.
Yeah.
The last thing is finding a mentor. You need to have someone who has your back, someone who can be your sounding board, someone to talk to about your everyday challenges. And again, it doesn't have to be someone in the same field. It doesn't have to be a woman. It's just that someone that you can be comfortable with.
Exactly. Be unbiased.
And just reach out to a person and ask. If you don't ask, you don't receive, like one of my partners keeps saying.
That's amazing. Have you always had a mentor yourself?
Yes.
Yeah.
I had a mentor ever since I was in school, actually.
Oh, have you?
Yeah, my uncle was my first mentor.
Oh, that's amazing. I've always spoken about the importance of having a mentor because I've had that as well. Because sometimes when your mind is all up in the air with everything, they also help to ground you as well.
Exactly.
So I've had a few mentors that have been with me, but then also other mentors that come in based on the life stage of where I'm at. My background is corporate, and so moving from corporate into launching my own business, the stark difference between the two, I didn't think that it was going to be that different.
Absolutely, I hear you.
So I definitely needed someone that knew what that emotional roller coaster would entail. So yeah, mentoring is very important.
And the thing is, with mentoring, one thing that I realized, having been in a formal mentoring program back in 2009, is that this region still lacks those formal mentoring structures, and whatever we have comes from outside of the region. So even in large corporates, it's very rare that you see structured mentoring programs. So I can't emphasize enough the importance of mentoring and the fact that we need to be willing to mentor other women and hold their hands, because again, that's our responsibility. That's the stewardship that we are here on this earth for.
No, I love that. I think it's definitely about being proactive, about asking, because I've always been very proactive about asking as well, and no one has ever said no, ever.
Exactly.
Like they find it endearing, and they want to help. So ask, every time, and you will receive.
Exactly.
So Amam Ventures. I was going to say Amam Ventures.
I'm telling you, it has been an adventure since we started. So Amam Ventures, adventure.
Gender Lens Investment Fund. Tell me about the story. Tell me more about it. Tell me about the adventure that it is.
It has been an adventure. And I have to tell you that, so a lot of women say that they're lucky whenever they're successful.
Yeah.
And I don't attribute luck to it because it's a lot of hard work.
Cool.
But I consider myself to be lucky in one thing. The fact that I was very passionate about the career that I had in management consulting, and I truly believed that I was doing a lot of good for the country and the businesses that I was working with, but finding another passion later on and starting a new career that I'm passionate about, that's a blessing, and that's luck, because not a lot of people can find that.
Yeah.
So when it came to gender lens investing, so we realized that I talked about the funding gap and the fact that a lot of the women-owned businesses are not growing, are not reaching their full potential because they don't have access to funding. Those businesses tend to be non-tech, so they don't fit the typical VC model. They're too small for private equity.
Okay.
And a lot of them don't have collateral or assets to put up against bank loans. So they don't access funding, the businesses remain small lifestyle businesses and don't grow. So we decided that we wanted to tackle that because, again, when women grow, they hire more women. They buy from women. Okay, so it's a virtuous cycle that we wanted to support. So my partners and I got together. We're three. We're first-time fund managers. It's an all-female fund management team. So globally, that's something rare, let alone in this region. We decided to tackle a segment of the economy that no one is supporting. So it's not just the tech startups, it's also the traditional brick and mortar SMEs.
Yes.
And this is a global funding gap that a lot of people are trying to address. And then we started to introduce new funding instruments to the market. So stuff that are revenue-based, mezzanine funding, not just the typical equity, because equity is very expensive. And when we looked at those four differentiators that we had, we're like, oops, how are we going to convince investors to invest in us? So we needed to be as standard as possible in every other way at Amam Ventures. So when it came to the definition of the gender lens, we came across a very interesting global initiative called the 2X Challenge.
Okay.
Again, the G7 countries back in 2018 recognized that women entrepreneurs globally face a lot of challenges. And they wanted to help solve for some of those challenges. They put up at the start $3 billion, then topped it with another $15 billion to be spent through developmental agencies to support women entrepreneurs or women entrepreneurial ventures. And the definition of women entrepreneurship was a very nice, broad one.
Yeah, wow.
It's businesses that have female founders, or businesses that have female leadership, or female that have a certain percentage of female employees, or businesses that have products or services that cater for women or girls. So it's a broad lens. And that's why one of the investees that we have is a company that was founded by 2 males, but they have more than 50% female employee. We want to support those inclusive businesses because they offer opportunities for women. So we started designing the fund. We had our first believers, the first investors who came on board, and we launched in January 2021. And I can tell you that it's been a wonderful journey.
Oh, great.
Where there's not many of us in the region. There's not many of us across globally, you know. But that meant that we are a big part of all these communities of impact investors and gender lens investors around the world. There's a lot of learning for us to do because it's still a new field. But again, there's a lot of support. There's a lot of interest that we're seeing across the world. I believe that this gender lens investing is a big solution for the challenge of women's access to finance, but also for women's economic participation. So, I'm proud to be heavily involved in that field. One thing that we've learned at Amam very early on is that we still need to continue to pay it forward. We still need to be ecosystem shapers because very few people know enough about gender lens investing. And that's why we've been very vocal about the work that we're doing. We're doing a lot of joint research activities with organizations like Endeavor. Yesterday, we launched a wonderful report about women and investing together with UBS, the global wealth management company. And I was like sitting there at the panel talking about the research yesterday and thinking that Amam Ventures is less than 3 years old and we partnered with UBS, you know, that global.
That's incredible.
That's amazing. Okay, so we feel that part of our role is providing the insights, that thought leadership piece that we need to focus on in addition to being investors.
Yeah, wonderful. That's congratulations. That's really exciting. And 3 years, that is an absolute whirlwind. Can you tell me, given that you were essentially first to market, there aren't too many others out there, did you find, you know, that's such a great thing because it means there's no other competition and you're sort of there doing your own thing. But what also comes with that is sometimes skepticism from investment. Can you tell me what challenges you faced?
It was hard. Being first-time fund managers, everyone was asking for our track record. And although we had personal track records, they didn't see a track record that brought the 3 of us together. So that meant that we had to do a lot of homework before going out there and talking to potential investors. And one day it hit us that we were being asked the same questions that women entrepreneurs are asked by investors. Okay, we were asked about the risks. We're asked about what can go wrong. Okay, and when we were talking to our male counterparts in other investment funds, everyone was talking to them about the amazing opportunities that are out there.
What does success look like?
Exactly. And we were like, wow, this is such an eye-opener, okay? Because even as investors with all this experience, you're still put in that same perspective. You're looked at with that same stereotype. So it wasn't an easy journey, but it was very rewarding. We focused from day one on finding our first believers. So we talked to a lot of people. I can't tell you how many calls and meetings I've done in the past 3 years together with my partners. But once we put in our heads that we needed to get those first believers, it became much easier, okay? Because there's always someone out there who understands your mission and who wants to be a part of it. You just need to find that person because that person will pave the way for you.
Yeah.
And this is what happened in our case.
That's so interesting because you were experiencing firsthand what it is that you're also teaching.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We were walking the walk.
Yeah, so you would have been like, okay, wait a second. This is really interesting, but also very helpful. Can you tell me, what was your mindset like when things were challenging and how did you move through it? Because mindset is a big thing, right? You sort of can be hit across the head with, no's or negativity or feelings of it's not going to work.
We had so many of those. And again, being 3 partners, we had those thoughts in different times,
Yes.
which meant that they were tripled. So yeah, waking up one day and one of us would like, this is not working. Should we continue or should we stop? We had doubts all the time. But then when we talked to the women, when we saw the stories, okay, and when we taught the women to tell their own impact stories, this is when we started appreciating more what we were doing and decided that we're fighting this till the end. We're going to make it happen. And I can tell you a couple of the stories. In one case, and again, this is where the group played, one woman posted that her lifelong dream was to start a restaurant.
Yes.
She quit her job at a large corporate, put in her personal savings, and took a personal loan and started the restaurant.
Good on her.
She was very proud of, but things were not going well.
Okay.
She was losing a lot of money and she needed help. In a few minutes, she had more than 100 responses on the Facebook group. One was from a branding executive who said that she went by her restaurant or checked her website and she could immediately identify that there was something wrong with the signage. So she scheduled a session to help her. Another one was from a food technologist or a menu engineer. And she took the time to actually look at her menu and was able to identify the problem and where she was hemorrhaging money. So again, she had her redesign her menu. In 6 months, she was back thanking the group and thanking the members of the group because her business was breaking even.
I've got goosebumps.
I know. I get goosebumps every time I tell this
That's such
story.
a nice story. Yeah. And just the power of that networking group and support groups. Like, women need to continuously uplift each other. We're not here to compete.
Exactly.
There's more than enough seats at the table for us all.
100%. 100%. And that for us emphasized again the importance of the role that we were playing as conveners and as investors.
Yeah. No, I love that. I love that story. So the final question then is, what is the best piece of career advice you've ever been given?
Oh, that's a difficult question, actually, because I received such good advice throughout my journey. I'd like to think that it's a long one. It hasn't been that long, but continuing to learn. I think for me, that was the most important piece of advice. And that's something that I learned very early on. Even as a kid, when I look at some of my pictures that my parents used to take for me when I was still before my siblings came to the world. And later, I always had a book with me. Whenever I visited family, they felt that I would be too bored playing with the other kids and they would give me a book or a magazine to read. It's like, okay, you're emphasizing that I'm a nerd. Thank you for reminding me.
I know I'm a nerd, Mom. Leave me alone. But was there a book on anything? Like, would they just give you a book on anything? Was it a particular topic?
The one thing that I always got was the latest feature of Reader's Digest.
Reader's Digest. Yeah. Okay. All right. That's what you need to be successful, people.
Exactly. It was always fun to read.
No, I love that. And then, I mean, the last question then is, you're so busy every day. You've got so many things going on. What is it that you like to do in your downtime?
Read.
I should have known that. I should have actually said, I'll answer this one. I'll take it from here tomorrow.
So actually, I love doing a lot of stuff. Just hanging out with friends over a nice drink, listening to some music.
But you prefer to read.
I prefer to read, absolutely. Hanging out with the nephews and nieces is another rewarding experience or another lovely downtime that I have. I don't get enough of that, obviously. But yeah, I think for me, reading is the only way for me to truly switch off.
Yes.
And go somewhere else.
Yeah, nice. And are you fiction or non-fiction?
All.
Okay. So it's not just about learning, it's also about escaping.
Exactly.
Because I feel like for me, reading, I like to escape.
I like to escape, and I like to satisfy that curiosity that I have with learning about different things. So whether it's psychology, philosophy, historical fiction, non-fiction, I'm a very curious person. So
I'll
that's
have
why.
to get you to submit a book review on She Leads the Way. We do roundups of like your best business book review. So
I have a few.
So I would love your input on that one. But if you were to, is there one on the top of your mind now that you're like, oh, this one was really helpful? Just one.
The one that's my all-time favorite,
Yeah.
was Jim Collins's Good to Great.
Okay.
Because not only did it help me focus on what creates great companies,
Yes.
or how you can grow great companies, but also it had this internal message that opened my eyes. It talks about your business, but also your personal competitive advantage and how you can find that.
Oh,
I
okay.
can tell you what it was.
Oh my gosh.
So basically, it's the intersection. If you think of different circles, it's the intersection of a circle that's something that you're very passionate about, with something that you're very good at, and then something that has monetary or economic value.
It's almost like Ikigai.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So if you find that, and that's something that I learned, like, I don't know when the book came out, maybe 15 years ago or even more. Okay. And when you find that, this is what you should be doing. Or when you find that or identify that for your business, this is what your business should be focusing on.
Interesting. And did you do that?
Of course.
Okay, everything's aligned.
Yeah, of course.
Oh, okay. I definitely want to read that book.
It's a
Thank you
beautiful
for
book,
that.
actually.
I'll let you know what I
It's a
think.
good one.
Tamara, it was such a pleasure having you in here. Thank you so much for joining us.
Of course, I truly enjoyed this. And
Me too.
it's such an honor to be here.
No,
And thank you for the opportunity.